talks of the Rebbe from Yud Gimel Kislev, which is like this Shabbos, same day of the month, and the year Tafshin Chav Zayin, which should be about the end of 1966, possibly the beginning of 1967. Okay, so he says, so the Rebbe says like this. David Kvar, we spoke, Kama Pamim, many times, that Sheyesh Shebiyam Shabbos hu memutze ben sheishes yimei ha'maisa shel hashavua she'avar ben sheishes yimei ha'maisa shel shvua haba. Shabbos is in between the 6 days of the week of the previous week and the 6 days of the coming week. So in between that, Shabbos holds the balance between the 2 weeks. And each Shabbos continues that way. So there's two things that we have to look at. We have to look at the past week and the week ahead. Aleph, one is we look at the Shabbos as it is a completion of the 6 days of our efforts. That God completed making the heavens and the heaven and the earth and all the things that are in it by Yishbais, and he rested on the seventh day. And in that is not just that God completed the 6 days of his of creation. We're holding the second paragraph, but also that Shabbos elevates all the days of the week of the previous week. Doesn't just mean completion, but Yechula also means from the word kilayan, a yearning, a taining, a pleasure, meaning to say a pleasure in the elevation of the previous week. And the Rebbe says, as all the explanations that are given by the Tzemach Tzedek on the verse Vaychulu, meaning to say the verse that we complete, the Shabbos completes and elevates and brings kilaya and yearning or desire for our efforts in the previous week up to Shemayim. Okay, like the idea of Kolei Nefesh, a yearning of the soul. That's one idea of Shabbos. So Shabbos is a completion of the previous week. A second idea of Shabbos is in Yonishayim Shabbos Kvishu Bitur Hachonav Akdama, as Shabbos is a preparation for the coming week. So Shabbos prepares us for the next week. That we find, it's brought down, that Shabbos, it's a Zohar, that Shabbos blesses all the coming days. So Shabbos empowers the next week. Including the coming Shabbos itself, that the entire week gets blessed, all the hachlotas, all the preparation and commitments you make, that it should be Shabbos is holy to Hashem. And how you behave Shabbos gives energy for all the coming days of the week. When a person goes out to the week and is doing domestic things, worldly things, it shouldn't just be, there's a concept which is called chulin al taras hakodesh. The idea is even if someone wasn't a kohen, so they would want to behave as if they were kohanim, which means that even if they ate chulin, even if they ate regular meats or regular things, they behaved as if it was holy, taras hakodesh. So therefore, they treated everything with the same tahara, the same purity, as if it was something holy. So that's the idea, to elevate the mundane, even though it's chulin, it's not kodesh, but they do it al taras hakodesh, as if it was holy, the same purity that you would designate to something holy. So that's the idea that you take from Shabbos to designate the chulin of the week, al taras hakodesh, with the purity of holiness of Shabbos. So basically, what the Rebbe is saying is that Shabbos is a conclusion of the previous week, an elevation of the previous week, and an empowerment to the coming week. So you could do chulin al taras hakodesh. You could do the mundane with the purity of holiness. And the Rebbe says this is spiritual ideas that we're talking about Shabbos. So where do we see this idea also in the revealed parts of Torah? These two ideas of Shabbos, this idea is also mentioned in the revealed parts of Torah. Where do we see this? The Gemara in Shabbos, page 69, 2, says, There's two halachas. What happens if a person gets lost in the desert and doesn't know when Shabbos is, right? You get lost. You don't know when Shabbos is. You lose count of the days. So what do? So one opinion is Shemayna Shishi Yom Sham Yom Echad. One opinion is count 6 days, So you're starting as if your week is now. Whenever that moment is when you realize you're muvulval, you're confused, count 6 days and keep the seventh day. The second opinion is that the opposite. Right away, do Shabbos now, and then count 6 days. So what do we see from here? That there's two ideas. There's first, the Shabbos, the way it completes the 6 days, and the way Shabbos is an empowerment for the next 6 days. The Rebbe says, the Rebbe continues, Gam binyani shel yom haShabbos sheminei misbarachim kol yomim negei oifen avoid the b'sheishes meiser from Shabbos. There's not just that Shabbos has two opposite sides or two separate sides to it. That is the way Shabbos is an empowerment to the next week, and the way Shabbos is a completion to the previous week. But how you do the previous week it conditions the empowerment of the next week. So it's each week is a continuation. Shabbos draws energy from the previous week, and therefore, and with that energy, it gives power to the next week. Amar Zal, our rabbis have taught us in the Gemara Avodah Zarah that mi shetarach be'erev Shabbos, if a person puts effort into Erev Shabbos, means the simple translation is that we can't cook on Shabbos. So if you prepare your food on Friday, you'll have what to eat on Shabbos. If you don't prepare your food on Friday or Thursday, you won't have anything to eat on Shabbos because you haven't prepared anything and you can't cook food on Shabbos. So our rabbi, it's not just simple as that, it's also spiritually. That Misha Tarach B'Erev Shabbos, someone who prepares before Shabbos, Yechel B'Shabbos has what to eat on Shabbos. Leidak be'erev Shabbos mamish. Not just that 5 minutes before Shabbos you quickly run home and throw the chicken in the oven and the fish in this oven and boil up some hot water and make a soup ki'ilu. But the leidak be'erev Shabbos mamish. Shishi b'Shabbos. Not just the shishi b'shvua, the sixth day. Gam b'meshach chol yimei shavua. The whole week, spiritually, if you prepare yourself, if you behave properly through the week, you can have what to have spiritually on Shabbos. Heichel miyayim harishon. Starting all the way from Sunday. From Sunday, when a person starts to prepare themselves for Shabbos, like we say, Yom Yom Rishon the Shabbos, Yom Yom Shein the Shabbos, it's starting to give energy for the Shabbos. Shu hayoysi rachik me'em Shabbos. That's the most distant day within the week, obviously Sunday. It's Srichim liyos kvar hachana le'em Shabbos tarach be'erev Shabbos. Already then, you have to start preparing for the Erev Shabbos. So Barbara, this is a good plug for you. Barbara is sponsoring B'ezras Hashem next Wednesday night. We started a new class in the laws of Shabbos. Details to follow. Okay, continuation. This is not just talking about spiritual, but also physically. You have to start getting ready for Shabbos on Sunday. Simply said, the most simple way to say it is you go to work and you start getting paid at the end of the week, hopefully, so you'll have what to eat for Shabbos. It's moving gam midivre Gemara, as it says, also not just in salary, but also when you're going to the market and you're looking around and different deals. So it says about hold on, Aaron. It says we learned about Shammai the elder, which was the colleague of Hillel the elder. All day, all the week he ate for Shabbos. What does that mean? If he found a nice looking animal, something, an attractive piece of flesh, like they say, he would say, oh, this is for Shabbos. So he would buy it on Sunday. And then the Gemara tells that he find something nicer and you eat the next. So he was constantly eating for Shabbos because his mind was always, anything he found attractive throughout the week he's figuring out a way how to designate it for Shabbos. Yes, Aaron.
Is that what the daily, the prayer of the day, they have one for each day of the week, is for Shabbos?
That's why we say Yom Yom Rishon the Shabbos, the first day of Shabbos, the second day of Shabbos. We're already connecting Shabbos right away from our prayers in the week. Yes. Very good.
When can we officially start cooking or actually buying the food for Shabbos to prepare?
That depends on each person. It seems, according to most of the halach, especially in the winter, it seems like we should try to get as much possibly done on Thursday. Okay, and we'll learn more about that hopefully in the laws of Shabbos and starting the class later this week. Next week. Okay, so the Rebbe continues. That's physically. So physically, we have to be ready for Shabbos starting from Sunday. It's not just physically, also spiritually. The physical things come from spirituality. The very fact that our physical material things are affecting Shabbos already from Sunday, so too that it's because that's the way it is spiritually. That Sunday is already affecting Shabbos in our spiritual growth. It means a person sometimes, it's Sunday, say it's a day off. Monday I'm going to start, learning, but we have to start right away from Sunday. And this is what Aaron just pointed out. This is why we say in the song of the day that we say before Enkel Ekenu, Hayoim Yoim etc. b'Shabbos. This is the day For Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, getting ready for Shabbos. Seemingly, the song is about Sunday. The song isn't about Shabbos. The song is about Monday. Why do you mention Shabbos? Today is Sunday before Shabbos, and therefore we're singing the song of the David. It's nothing. We're not talking about Shabbos now. We're talking about Sunday. Because the Rebbe says everything is connected to Shabbos, starting from Sunday. And if you're singing a song now, that song is related to give energy for Shabbos. The idea of the Rebbe is saying that the entire week is getting is a preparation for Shabbos. The Nachmanides says, the Nachmanides brings down in I'm not sure where he brings it down in the Gemara Beitza that the Jewish people are constantly counting for the Shabbos. Echad the Shabbos, Sheni Shabbos, the first day of Shabbos, second day of Shabbos means the first day of Shabbos would be Sunday, second day is Monday. Kizu min ha-mitzvah shnistava by l'zichri tamid l'chayim. The Ramban says, when it says Zocher Shem Shabbos l'chadshrei, remember the holy day of Shabbos, the Ramban says, it doesn't mean that when it comes Shabbos, you remember Shabbos. Every day you should remember Shabbos. And how do we remember Shabbos every day? By applying every day to Shabbos, connecting every day to Shabbos. The Rebbe says, this is understood. Clearly, we see that Shabbos is connected, is dependent, so to say, on the 6 days before Shabbos. When a person throughout the week, the 6 days of the week before Shabbos, who is in a proper way, an elevated way, it affects Shabbos. You can't just have a whole week one way and expect to have a spiritual experience on Shabbos. Shabbos is a culmination of the week. So if you have a proper week, then you have a proper Shabbos. Reicher, the Rebbe says you have a richer Shabbos. And then then what you are able to bring from Shabbos and the blessings you're going to give from Shabbos in the next week, it's much better. It means if you upgrade Shabbos, then Shabbos has more energy to give to the next week. If you walk into Shabbos with not preparing for Shabbos, so Shabbos, so to say, Lahavdil is weak. And where does it have the energy or limited energy to give? Energy to give for the next week. The way Shabbos gives blessings to the rest of the week. So here we see clearly that it's not just an importance, not just that Shabbos has two energies, one for the previous culmination of the previous week and how it empowers the next week, but the previous week affects how it can empower the next week. Okay. So the Rebbe says, so we've established the idea of the power of Shabbos. The Rebbe is obviously trying to connect the day of the 13th of Kislev, because it's a middle day in the month of Kislev, with the previous week and the next week. What do we have in the previous week is obviously Yud and Tes Kislev, and the next week we have Yudal Kislev and Yud Tes Kislev. This is understood. So what do we see? That Shabbos connects 2 weeks together, because the 2 weeks are dependent on each other. Sometimes the Rebbe says, sometimes we don't really see it. But we have to search to connect the 2 weeks together. To try to find what could be the connection from last week to the next week. The Rebbe gives an example. Let's say we have 1 week that's a very powerful, joyful week. Sometimes we have where 1 week could be a good week, a happy week, and the next week could be a less happy week, or vice versa. Tisha B'Av is in 1 week, and then Tu B'Av is in the next week. So sometimes we do see the connection. It means the Rebbe says when you have a good week and a negative week, we don't so much see the connections between the two. But when we have a positive week, a good week, and then we have another positive week, so the connection is clearer. So the Rebbe says, sometimes we see clearly the connection between the 2 weeks. Not sometimes in the fundamentals, just inside things. Sometimes the fundamentals of each week are connected. The Rebbe comes to the conclusion, what's the Rebbe leading up to? That this Shabbos, Shabbos Vayishlach on the 13th of Kislev is an open connection between the 2 weeks. How it connects the previous week to the coming week. Something fundamental. We'll see in a second what. The Rebbe is talking on Shabbos. The past week, meaning this week that we're in right now, Haya Hayom HaMiyuchad Shal Yud Kislev was the special day of the 10th of Kislev. What is the 10th of Kislev? Yom Geulus Admar Mitzai, the day of the redemption of the Mittel Rebbe, Dov Ber Shneari, the son of the Alter Rebbe, the great mind Chassidus and teacher of Chassidus in an abundance. Ubeshua Aban, what's the following week? Yutes Kislev is the day Yom HaGeula, the day of redemption, the Rosh Hashanah of Chassidus for the Alter Rebbe of the Admar Azakin, Rosh Hashanah of Chassidus, the Rosh Hashanah of Chassidus. Hakavana Bebiti Yom HaMiyuchad hi b'ha'isaf al inyan HaMiyuchad shel Oisa Yom sheba yichal Yud Kislev b'mei HaShavua. Says the Rebbe says, when I mean to say that's a special day, it's aside for the day of the week that it falls out, because we have the day of the month and the day of the week. Every day has its special avoda. Means there's the Sunday component, there's the week component, and there's the month component. The Rebbe always, anytime the Rebbe spoke, if it was a Monday, a Tuesday, one, especially Tuesday, the Rebbe is very into Tuesdays, because Tuesday says 2 times ki tov. Tov l'shamayim and tov l'aretz. When the Rebbe spoke on Tuesdays, the Rebbe always connected the week, energy of the week. And so we have the energy of the week and the energy of the day. Of the month. Every day of the week has its avodah. As it was in the first days of creation. The midos are different. First, the Sunday's chesed, Monday's gevura. The world's existence is dependent on the energy of that day of the week. As the Zohar says, everything that God does, he takes from Torah. God looks into the Torah and creates the world. Barnash, humans, Barnash means from the word enosh, people, mishtadel by raisim kaim alma. They learn Torah and they keep the world in existence. So the whole world's existence, its creation, and its existence is dependent on Torah. If the 10th of Kislev falls out on a certain day of the week, it's a sign of its connection of something unique of that day of the week. There has to be something special that Wednesday was able, because that Yud Kislev that year was like this year, it was Wednesday. That Wednesday was able to be Yud Kislev. So we have three things. We have three things. We have one, the Yud of the month, which is the 10th of the month. We have the day of the week, and we have the day of that month. There's only one day of the year that is the 10th of Kislev. Based on what we said before, moving. You want to know if you properly celebrated Yud Kislev, the Mittel Rebbe's Yom HaGeula, you're going to see it on Shabbos. If you put effort on Erev Shabbos, on the days before Shabbos, like the Rebbe says, not just Friday, but all the days of the week, it's going to be what you have to eat on Shabbos spiritually. The Rebbe says, therefore, and therefore it empowers, like we said, how the next week is going to be. Yutas Kislev will be elevated if you properly celebrated Yud Kislev. The Rebbe says, it turns out, and therefore the Rebbe says, if you want to know, and therefore you have a ticket on Shabbos, if you want to fix, if you didn't do properly Yud Kislev, you want to be able to celebrate Yutas Kislev properly. You can't just come into Yutas Kislev like that. You want to come to Yutas Kislev properly. Again, the 19th of Kislev is the day of the redemption, the Alter Rebbe, the Rosh Hashanah of Chassidus. All our energy that we have of learning Chassidus comes from Yutas Kislev for the year. Ubagdama, the Rebbe says to give a preview to this. Even though the holidays themselves are not exactly the same, there's a difference. Simply, although it's different stories and different situations and circumstances of what we were celebrating, but the fundamentals are the same. It's a day of redemption for a leader of the Chassidus of Chabad. And what does that represent? Pnimis HaTorah. The inner teachings of Torah was at risk, and that became free. Befrat, and specifically, Sha'adim Ramsoi, who is the Mittel Rebbe, he is the one who took over the leadership from the Alter Rebbe. As the Rebbe said, I once spoke at length. What does it mean to fill the space? Pirusha means you're not just the next person, but you fill the entire gap of the person before you. There's no part of the Alter Rebbe that's not being taken over by the Mittler Rebbe. If that's the case, we have to understand clearly that there's a connection between the redemption of the Alter Rebbe and the redemption of the Mittler Rebbe. Yes, Aaron.
I don't get the two. I'm getting confused about the two Rebbes and all that. So could you clear it in easier terms?
Just simply said, in Chabad, there's 7 Rebbes. The first Rebbe Chabad was the Alter Rebbe. He was arrested for teaching Chassidus and writing the Tanya. He was released on the 19th of Kislev, which is next week. I think towards Thursday it falls out. And the 19th of Kislev, Friday, the 19th of Kislev is the day of the redemption of the Alter Rebbe and redemption of teachings of Chassidus. His son was Dov Ber, they call the Mittler Rebbe, the Rebbe Amtzai in Hebrew. He took over from his father. He was also arrested for his efforts in teaching Chassidus. And he also had a redemption this week on Wednesday, which is the 10th of Kislev. The Rebbe is connecting that just like the week before prepares us for the next week, if a person properly celebrates the liberation of the Mittler Rebbe, again, we've learned not inside but outside many of the teachings of the Mittler Rebbe. His teachings are tremendous. If we learn something on Sunday from the Alter Rebbe, it's in shorthand. That same mimer would be 40 pages in the Mittler Rebbe, an idea, for instance. So the teachings of Chassidus were brought to a much larger level by his son, much more in a broad understanding. So these are redemptions for these ideas. If the teachings of Chassidus would have stopped, God forbid, so where would we be today? So the liberation is not a story that happened once upon a time. It's happening now. Anything in Judaism is happening now. Judaism doesn't celebrate stories that once happened. Okay, we continue. I hope that helped you, and we'll talk a little bit more about it on the shmooze next week. The Rebbe says like this: Okay, asking Aaron's question. What does it mean, a redemption for the inner teachings of Torah? When we say redemption, it's forcing us to say, by definition, redemption means, right? The Rebbe always says, when we say Yeshua, give a person a Yeshua, this person needs a salvation. It's a half statement, right? If a person needs a salvation, it means the person's not in a good place. If a person's in a good place, you don't say you need a salvation. So if there's a redemption, there has to be a galus, there has to be an exile before there's a redemption. So if you're saying there's a geula, there's a redemption, we have to say, there's an idea of galus, of exile. The Rebbe says, seemingly, one could ask the question. We know that the difference between the revealed parts of Torah, like the Talmud, the Mishnah, the Halacha, and the esoteric parts of Torah, the Zohar, Kabbalah, Chassidus, is that in the Pnimis Torah, the Zohar says, less Taman Leikushya. In this teaching, there's no questions. We don't find arguments in Chassidus. There's just statements. This is the way it is. That's one of the problems people have with Chassidus, with Kabbalistic teachings. There's no conversation. There's just information. I mean, there's conversation to understand information, but there's no arguments. And Talmud's full of arguments, different opinions. There's no arguments. As the Alter Rebbe brings down the Gersa Kodesh from the Rai Mehemna, from the Zohar. And because there's no questions, the esoteric teachings, the Pnimis Torah, can't have any siphoning from unholy places. When there's questions, it opens up space for unholy energies to take root. But that's why Chassidus and Kabbalah are protected teachings. So how is there an exile? If there's a redemption, that's been exile. But we just said that the inner teachings of Torah, the Pnimis Torah, is a protected teaching. So how could there be a concept of exile? We find this by Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. He is the source of the inner teachings, the esoteric teachings of Torah. He was at such a level, he did not experience at all the concept of exile. He was beyond the exile because he was Pnimis Torah, he was the inner secrets of Torah. If that's the case, if it's a protected teaching, how is there an exile that there's a redemption? So the Rebbe explains, the idea is like this. What is the point of the teachings of Chassidus? Okay, like I said, I don't always look at the Sikha before I pick it. So we're learning this together. This is a more complicated Sikha than others, but we're going to get through this. What is the point of the teachings of Chassidus? Chassidus is unlike other teachings. Sometimes someone teaches something to someone just to show them that there's a high teaching, right? When someone learns something and it's kind of beyond their reach, it's like a protected teaching, and you know that you've just learned something that's really not really understood. That's not the point of Chassidus, that it should stay in the Garden of Eden. The whole point of Chassidus is to take the inner teachings of Torah, it should be brought down and give light to this world. Like that's what they told about Alter Baal Shem Tov. The wellsprings of Chassidus have to go outside. What's chutza mean? It has to go all the way out to the darkness of Galus. It should be effective. Not just that the light lights up the darkness, but the light reveals the benefit of the darkness. Where does the light get its elevation? Its addition. Yisrael means an addition. The Rebbe says a crazy thing, that the whole point is that the light gives light to darkness. Light for the sake of light is no point. The Rebbe says, if there only be idea of light, that's only giving light before the darkness, the whole story doesn't make sense. It's not worth it. To have a light in a room that's already light, what do you need a light for? When do you need a flashlight? Is when your lights go out. And when did we start really permeating the darkness with the light of Torah, Chassidus? That happened on the 19th of Kislev. That's the celebration of Yitas Kislev. And today you see it's amazing. I mean, anyone who's going to be married to be in Eretz Yisrael next week, it's going to be, there's hundreds of thousands of, this did not happen when I came to Eretz Yisrael. Hundreds of thousands of people come to the convention center in Yerushalayim in the B'nai Ha'omah and are learning, men, women, children. Women are giving shiurim, men are giving shiurim, farbrengens, books, something that never happened before. Mamish, hundreds of thousands of people have participated in the Yom Tov of Yitas Kislev. This happened on Yitas Kislev. Like the Rebbe, the Rashab, the fifth Rebbe Chabad said, this promise and command that Mashiach gave to the Baal Shem Tov, that when your well springs go outside, his Chol B'Yitas Kislev, that started on the 19th of Kislev, meaning when the Alter Rebbe was freed from prison, when there no longer was a hold limiting the light of the Torah Chassidus. Kfi Shabir, as it was explained, there's one rule, right? You can't get oil out of an olive if you don't crush the olive. The crushing of the olive was the imprisonment, and the outcome was the oil. That's when the oil of Chassidus, of Torah, that everyone, it's not just that Chassidus stays on the shelf or amongst the few, the selected few. That's not what it was all about. To leave light in a lit room, that's not what it's about. When's it go to every single person? That started Yitas Kislev. Even a person standing in the dark outside. The well springs themselves should reach that person. And should give light to he or she there. Okay, that's the fundamentals of Chabad. That's, you wonder what's the idea that why is there Chabad houses and why is there shluchim all over the world? It's not some sort of organization. It all comes from the idea of Yitas Kislev. It all comes from the message of Mashiach to the Baal Shem Tov. You want Mashiach to come, you got to take the well springs and bring them all over the place. And the Rebbe always says not to bring the water, to bring the spring itself. You have to bring the source all over the place. As the Alter Rebbe said, when he explained what does it mean, the revelations of the teachings of Chassidus. It's like the most precious stone in the crown of the king. That the beauty and the honest of the king's rule, of the king's malchus, is all shows itself in that stone, right? When the people see the stone, they understand the depth of what kind of king and what kind of malchus does this king have, right? So that's, you would protect that. That's the siman, that's the sign of the greatness of this king. Nevertheless, Afapi came. Right now the king has a sick son, and he's told the child is so sick, the doctors say that he may die. Azai koitshir v'toichin nevin toiv. And the story the Alter Rebbe says is that the doctor says there's only one remedy to save your son. That stone in your crown that represents your kingdom, that's in there is the medicine. And you have to crush that stone. You lose the stone. You lose its beauty the way it sits in the crown. The king doesn't think twice. He takes the stone out of the crown. He crushes it. He makes it into powder. So maybe a drop could go into the mouth of the son to save his son. Mitoich tikva, from hope. Maybe one drop will fall into the mouth of the son, and that's enough to save the son's life. And that was the example the Alter Rebbe gave. The reason why the Alter Rebbe gave this example is because there was another student of the Maggid, of the Alter Rebbe's teacher, who found the teachings of Chassidus written on a piece of paper floating on the floor. And he got very upset. He says, this is the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov, that people are writing Chassidus and it's just on the floor, i.e., all over the internet, i.e., people anywhere, someone could sit, God forbid, in a bathroom and learn Chassidus. This is a holy teaching. Why is it being exposed like this? So the Alter Rebbe gave the example of the stone. Even if you're going to crush the stone and most of the powder spills on the floor, but if one drop goes into the mouth and saves the son's life, so to Chassidus, if one drop of light is going to save a few Jews, it's worth all the effort. So the tikva, there's a hope. Ulay tikanas tipachas, one drop, the techpiv of the mouth of the son, then the son, which is the example, is the Jewish people, will be healed. The Jewish people were spiritually without chayis at that time. There was just we were going through the motions. We needed to become alive again. What is Chassidus? Ben HaMelech. We're healing the son of the king. The son of the king was deathly sick. It was all the way outside in the darkness. The idea is that a little bit of that medicine has to go all the way to the most dark place in the world. It doesn't have to be further in space, it can be further in concept. To give light to that person, and to heal that person. Movement, the Rebbes says this is understood. This answers the question that how could you have redemption if it's a protected teaching? Even though that the teaching itself is a protected teaching, that there's no questions, and therefore there's no vulnerability to the outside forces. To page 281. Because it went down to a place that's dark. That could be the exile, because maybe it won't be able to be effective in these dark places. Therefore, when we're able to be effective, when we're in Shemaim, the Paskin, that the teachings of Chassidus have to be spread, and there's the Geula, there's a redemption for the teachings of Chassidus. Let's go a little further. One could still ask the question. Also, why do you need Chassidus? When we talk about even the revealed teachings of Torah, Talmud, Musar, Mishnah, it says, Haloi koi divrei ke'esh. The word of God is like the word of fire, passion, excitement. V'dor Chazal, and our teachers have taught us, Ma eish einu mekabel tuma. Just like fire, you can't make impure. Af divrei Torah, so too the words of Torah don't get impure. So what's so special about Chassidus? V'rak nislabshe be'etz hadas ta'ivira ki v'shemash me begeres hakodesh nal. And only that it encloses itself in the tree of knowledge, good and bad. Therefore, there's certain things you could do, and certain Torah is about things you could and cannot do because it's connected to the good and bad. Certain things it tells you is forbidden, but the Torah itself is a protected teaching. Vimkein. What's the difference between Pnimis Torah? Pnimis Torah also, Chassidus also is vulnerable if it's going to be effective in the dark, even though it itself is protected. So to Torah, it's the revealed parts of Torah is also a protected teaching. It's like fire. The only thing is that it goes into laws that are not that teach us about things what we should and shouldn't do. So what's the difference between what's so special about teaching? Why does one have to learn Pnimis Torah? Why does one have to learn Chassidus? The idea is like this. The fundamental difference between the revealed teachings of Torah and the inner teachings of Torah, Chassidus and Kabbalah, it's not about the limitations or the risk it has going out, but how it's being revealed, how it's being redeemed. It's possible that when it comes to revealed parts of Torah, the redemption won't be in a peaceful way. That's what the Alter Rebbe says, Padam b'shalom nafshi. The idea of Chassidus is that the redemption should be in a peaceful way. As it was by King Shlomo, Shehaya ish menucha, he was a man of peace. That's why his name is Shlomo from the word Shalom. L'chein ayadei nivna beis hamikdash. Therefore, he was the one who built the temple, not David, who fought wars. Shnikr b'shem menucha menachla, because then that is the place of God's calmness, where God rests in a calm way. Even when Shlomo Melech had to do refinement, they brought the sparks to him, right? The Queen of Sheba came to him. Like it says, and that's the pasuk that we connect here to Kislev, that I've been redeemed in peace. And that verse that King David said, is connected to the 19th of Kislev, like the Alter Rebbe says in Gerasa Yedua in the famous letter. The Alter Rebbe says, as I was reading the Tehillim, chapter 50, the pasuk Padav Sham Nafshi, I was reading the verse that says, my soul has been redeemed in peace. I went out peacefully from the imprisonment. And the same thing happened on the 10th of Kislev, when the Mittel Rebbe was redeemed. When was he told that he's let out of his imprisonment? He was more in a house arrest. He was also saying the verse that my soul is redeemed on the 10th of with peace. Because the chapter 50 falls out on the 10th day of the month, and therefore he was saying the Tillim for the day of the month, and therefore he was redeemed when he said Padim B'Shalom. The difference between Nigla is he's not explaining what it means, and we could talk a little bit more in detail. What does it mean that the revealed parts of Torah doesn't have Shalom, and the Pnimis Torah has Shalom? Hopefully, he's going to address that question. He's just saying it as a fact that the Nigla of the Torah, why is it not Shalom? I'm thinking the idea is because even in the halachas we have different opinions. Ashkenazim say this, Sephardim say this, Hasidim say this, the Tfish say that. There's always you walk into shul, nothing's the same. Everyone has a different nusach, everyone has a different this, everyone's doing something differently. So it's not everything's not done peacefully. There's arguments in the law, there's arguments how things should be done. So even though we try to reveal Torah within the world, but even in the revelation of Torah, it's not clean cut. Where Hasidus is just Kabbalah is the spiritual teachings of it. I think that's what he means. I'm hoping I'm right. And because one of the conditions is that because Chassidus was redeemed with peace, therefore the Rabbim, everyone's together. Rabbim Hayimadi, all the multiples were with me. Turns the multiples, which is a place, the public domain is a place of risk. That's why the menorah has to go to the public domain. Yiyamadi should be biyachinim David with David. That David was the chariot of the attribute of Malchus, meaning to say he represented kingship. He's able to be quiet in his humble service of God. He was like a stone that has totally nullified to where it's being placed. That's how nullified David was to God. And that's why, even though there was so much machlaikas about Chassidus, but eventually Chassidus, what happened now? Literally, and it's just what you see today is a sign. You go to these places that, like the convention center in Yitzhak Kislev, everyone's learning Chassidus, all teaching the teachings of the Alter Rebbe, the teaching of the Rebbe, teaching the Middle Rebbe. It's something incredible to see. There's no real art. Everyone's just teaching the same teachings in their way. So that's the way it says that the redemption comes through peace. The Rebbe says, what's this mean to us? That we, all of us here on the Zoom, and all of us who are watching on YouTube, we have to go out there and spread the teachings of Chassidus. It's an obligation. It's not something that the rabbi has to do. It's something that we all have to do. Chutzah, we have to spread it out into the outside. B'darkei noyim, b'darkei shalom. We're not here to be aggressive. We're here to do it peacefully. We're here to do it in a nice way. Mitayach simcha. We have to do it with joy. And when we're going to be with this way, to go out there in a proper manner, the proper attitude. But the idea is to take the well springs, not just the waters. Take the well springs, bring them everywhere. We affect sha'asimar dam malka Mashiach. That's going to bring the coming of Mashiach. It's going to be tremendous joy, time of Mashiach. The Shira Chadasha. Not only is it going to be a new song in the female, which represents as a makabel, as you receive the music. El Shir Chadash is going to be masculine song. We're going to give the music. Lashon Zachar, Kashem Shimshach Or Chadash. Like it says, there's going to be a new light, Lashon Zachar, Bebias, Mashiach Tzidkenu, with the coming of Mashiach, V'yigalenu, he should redeem us, down in this world, in this space. Let's just do, let's see if there's something else I want to do short. Seems like the Rebbe is getting deep into the teachings of the Mittler Rebbe. Just see how the Farbrengen ends. The Farbrengen ends, there's an Ufruf there. The Rebbe teaches a pasuk on Chumash. All right, let's just do, we don't understand the connection, but we're going to learn it anyways. Let's just do the last paragraph of the Sikha. What is the lesson of everything that we've learned so far? The person may think, how could you live a life? What did we say in the blessings of marriage? As you took joy when you were formed in the Garden of Eden back in the day. You want a marriage to be in the level of how things were in the beginning of creation? It wasn't the way we were after the sin. We bring ourselves the way we were before the sin. The Rebbe says, how could a person have that kind of simcha in their life when they know they're like Adam and Chava at best after the sin? And you want me to be that I should be with the joy the way they were before the sin? Look in the mirror. So we tell the he or she, Shafilu Esav. Again, this is connected to what they learned before. Shafilu Esav, had he done tshuva? Oh, that's the idea that he married. It's the famous sikha. The Rebbe says that he married Machlas. Machlas was the daughter of Ishmael. The word machlas comes from the word mechila. And when he gets married, you start a new page in life. So we say, even about Esav, his sins would have been forgiven. Notwithstanding how Esav was up until that point. Notwithstanding how he behaved after that. A person could do tshuva and then go back to the way you were before the tshuva. But if at this moment you've done tshuva, you would have had a clean beginning. You could go back to the way it was in Gan Eden before the sin. The Rebbe says even more so. If there's a Jew out there, that what is your true desire? In your inner desire. I want to do what Hashem wants. Like the Rambam Paskins, every Jew wants to do what Hashem wants. That's why he says, I want to give a divorce even though he's getting hit. That's considered that he wants to give a divorce because the Rambam says that's what he really wants. It's just, you're not the Yetzer Hara is taking over how you project things. If a person does tshuva, you could go back to the way things were before the sin of Adam and Eve. And then through that, the Rebbe was talking to the chassid and kala, to the bride and the groom, you could establish an everlasting house, B'dar Yisrael Yivarach, with blessed children and just blessed generations until the coming of Mashiach. Good Shabbos, everyone. Thank you for joining, and have a meaningful Shabbos.
Good Shabbos, Rabbi. Thank you.
Thank you.